Let's see. What about now? Can you hear us now?
I mean, I don't think so. Oh, hang on, it's changing.
Yeah, there she goes.
All right.
She's up.
Yep. There's a delay on it, but yes.
All right. Uh, so
Now
we're
I got to turn that off. That'll freak me out.
yeah, we were kind of riffing a little bit on SDS2. We were talking about this job scope, and we thought maybe some people would like to play along. So I guess we'll see. So the the that is an abbreviation that I've never seen before. TOR for top of rod, which I don't even know why that's a thing you would give. Why would you give the top of anchor rod elevation?
I don't know. To, this is a strange one. And then their datum elevation is a half inch above the concrete, but there's 1 inch of grout. So it's just we want to make sure that you're doing some math. I don't know.
Did they? So they gave the dimension back from there that you could actually figure out what the top of concrete was.
No, I haven't been able to find that reference datum line either. But in the section view, it says reference datum line. Go down a half an inch, you're at top of concrete. Go up an inch, you're at top of grout. And there's no base plate size call out, but there's an anchor bolt pattern. There's also, not that I've found one so far, but I'm just about through this. I can't find a column size anywhere.
Yeah. So I was on the forum, the SDS2 forum, and there's a gentleman asking for a report. And I'm kind of looking at it, I'm like, yeah, okay, I understand why you need that report. But then he says, we're using version 2015.25. And I'm like, why would you use 2015? Like, of all the versions in the world, why
Right.
2015.25? Like, I understand people who are, no, I don't understand people who are still using 7.3. Let's not say that. But at least I get that it's a thing, that they have their reasons. I don't think they're good, but I know that they exist. But 2015, like, what are you doing?
Right. You've taken the leap forward from 7.3 into the annual release system, and 2015 was the start of that. It's not great. It was just the big change. 2015 had a lot of issues. 2016 had some issues, especially with vertical bracing. 2017 is where it really dialed in. 2018 adds a little bit more. It's got a couple of issues, but I mean 2017, 2018 is really where I'm sitting happy. 2018 is what we're using across the board right now.
Yeah, like 2015 is like so unremarkable that I don't even remember ever using it. Like I know stuff that happened in 2016, 17, 18, nothing about 2015.
If you fired up 2015 now, you would be able to work in it. You would be functional. You'd have to go back to 7.3 though in order to be nostalgic. Be like, oh yeah, I remember. It would be unremarkable to you, but it would be lacking all of the features that you've grown accustomed to in 2017, 2018.
Yeah, I don't get it.
It was the big UI shift where we got the tree on the left side of the member edit screen, and you got all those different tweaks to
So
how the
the tree
system.
came in 2015.
Yes.
Okay, then I hate 2015. I don't like the tree.
Was the beginning of the end for you?
Yeah, yeah. I I've never liked the tree.
Well, that's why you switched yourself to being a player in a management position.
Well, I understand the fundamental idea of it, right? The usefulness of a tree. I just hate their implementation of it. Like I always feel like I have to click 3 more times than is strictly necessary to accomplish whatever it is I'm trying to do.
You can hide it.
Oh yeah, I click that little button sometimes, and then 10 minutes. Well, not 10 minutes later, an hour later, I need it. But there was a discussion a while ago about auto hide functionality, and hey, let's get auto hide like this big new feature. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like that's a thing that we're hoping for. That just needs to be there. Like that's crazy. I am enjoying my Ugandan coffee. Fresh, what's the word? roasted. It was roasted at the Rochester Public Market this weekend.
You didn't stomp the beans yourself?
I did not stomp them, but it's in my Buffalo Bills travel mug that I got as a season ticket holder for my thing this weekend. I was very excited.
You just love to throw money away.
$1,000 gets you an excellent travel mug. It's actually not even all that good of a travel mug. Like, it's
fine consolation prize right there.
Yeah, it's just okay. It's what we should name our company. It's just okay.
That's a solid sales and marketing tactic right there.
Do you remember the whole discussion that we had when we were forming the company about naming it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We went back and forth on stuff for weeks.
Yeah, and we're all like, well, we could be creative. We could be, cute or funny or something like that. We could use our initials. And then we're like, you know what? Let's pick something that makes us sound cooler than we are. And, like, we want to emphasize the fact that we are domestic detailers. That's, like, our big thing. We're domestic. And we were hoping to do more structural steel at the time. So we were United Structural LLC.
I remember we had a software guy come out who was giving me a demo. I don't know why. I think you humored him, and then that got me roped into having to sit through their demo.
Sure.
But they had my business card, and they said, "Oh, I see you do miscellaneous steel here too." I was like, "Well, we don't like to, but we'll do it." "Oh, so you don't do a lot of miscellaneous?" Like, well, again, we don't like to.
Yeah.
Nothing kills schedule like a bunch of stairs that all of a sudden aren't to code or something like that. Things you don't notice at bid time. That
it's funny too, because people ask, "Oh, do you do a lot of stairs?" And we're like, "Yeah, we do. We do a lot of stairs." And we've become good at them. But when we started, we were just okay.
Yep.
Just okay. But really the only way to get better is to just continue to do them. And now we've done so many of them that other people come to us with their questions on stairs, which is great. But we still get customers too who do stairs in ridiculous ways, and you have to kind of humor them. But the weird part is, and we talk about this all the time, is their constant insistence that nobody would do it the way that we drew it. Like, that would never happen.
Right.
It's so frustrating. 'Cause it's like, yes, we not only do other people do it, most people do it this way. It's, you do a pinwheel stair where the stringers chase each other up, and they're like, "Oh, well, we like to build the landings separate and swing those up separately." Okay. Maybe let us know before we've drawn the whole stair that you want to do that.
Yep. Well, I like it when they want to, design something like that, but then they can't get in there and do that. They're expecting a crane. Like, they think they're going to erect a canopy worth of steel as a landing, and it's like, you're not outside the building with a crane. You've got guys in ladders, and now you really just screwed them over. So now the next thing you know, you get a call from the field because they're mad. The erector's mad because he's a separately hired guy having to dismantle this thing so that he can then put it back together one piece at a time in the field.
Yeah, we've had that situation a bunch of times where it was like the erector ends up calling us and is like, "Hey, why did you do all this stuff?" And we're like, the fabricator told us that's what you wanted to do. "Why would I ever want to do it that way? This is crazy. I can't put it together like this." Sorry. And it's like, well, how much do you push back on your customer and tell them, "Well, this is not a great idea. Like, this isn't the best way to go about that." It's
just once.
Yeah.
Just once. Give them their one chance to write themselves, and then once you've got it in writing that they say, no, this is what I want. Okay.
Right.
I'm going to hold on to this email. It's going to come into play later on.
Yep.
Uh-oh. I think everyone's home now.
All right, you've been muted. I'll give you a minute. Let me know when you can come back. So bidding seems to have picked up, which is good. It seems like usually you get that kind of lull in summer, or at toward the end of summer, which I guess we're only halfway through summer, so bidding should be picking up. Hello, Ryan. Yeah, so the freaking power plant job, it's one of those ones where when I'm bidding it, right, like all of it seems like a reasonable project, and there's drawings that there's the foundation plan, yep, and there's your columns and all that stuff. And then it's not until you really dig in and try to draw the stupid thing that you find out just how bad the drawings are. You remember Chandran used to always be like, oh, study the drawings, and you'll find all these questions before you ever start the job. And it's like, no, you won't. Until you actually sit down and try to model that stupid thing or try to draw it, you don't have any idea what the problems that you're going to run into are going to be.
Right.
Things are being broken in my house.
It sounds that way.
Yeah, there are definitely some trade-offs of working from home. Right, Autumn? Yeah.
I think I'm going to be spending the day creating RFIs.
Yeah, you definitely are. We're doing a video, sweetheart. Can you leave me be? Thank you. Yeah, I love you too. And it's one of those situations too where you hope that they just pass on your RFI and don't try to interpret your RFI and rewrite it for their stupid internet software. Like, how many times has that happened where you're like, okay, and we take care in writing our RFIs to make sure to ask the right question. And then we send it in and we end up getting the response, and they've asked a different question.
Yeah, you get an answer to a question you didn't ask.
Right. Or they only partially request what you've asked for, and it's like, now I have to issue another RFI and wait another week, possibly, to get that friggin' answer back. It's ridiculous. It drives me bonkers. But I guess that's just that doesn't have to be the way of it. Like, because there are good project managers who don't do that.
Right.
They can tell the difference between, hey, this is you've hired me for my expertise in drawing buildings. Allow us to do that work. Like, just let us do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Give us your standards. Let us know, what are the critical things that you need to see happen. What's the most economical connections that you like in your shop, and then just leave us to it.
Yeah.
Jason, you got to wonder though, how many times do they get burned on a bad detailer, especially if they try using overseas detailers?
Yeah. Jason in the chat says, or they hold them a week before sending them on. And it's not the RFI holding, right? That's on them. If they delay the schedule, that's their problem. But we need these drawings. We need them for approval. And then you send them in, and then a week later they call you and they're like, hey, did you send us those approval drawings? And you're like, yeah, I worked overtime for like a week straight to get those out on time. Have you not, like, you just didn't send those in? Are you kidding me right now?
Yeah, and without a word for the whole week. But then you go back and you look at the email, and when you send it in, they replied thanks.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And they got him, and then just forgot
Yep.
about it. And it's like, man,
Yep.
I yelled at my children to leave me alone. Like I ruined my diet. I did all of these things to get your drawings out on time, and then you haven't even done anything with them yet. You
Yep.
gotta be kidding me.
Oh man.
Or you send the drawings back, and it always happens on the same day. You send the drawings out for approval. You bust your butt. You get the drawings out, and then that same day you send them in for approval, and in reply to your email, they send you the revised set of contract drawings. Oh, thanks for the approval drawings. Why don't you throw those out and redo it based on this new set of drawings that I'm going to give to you? And are you done yet?
Shouldn't take you long.
Right. Just
All they did was change the radius and the work point.
we only changed 2 dimensions, the radius and the work point. You should be fine.
We had a job, I think it was just a month ago, where we sent them an email saying, hey, you haven't paid us our invoice for those approval drawings. And they sent it back and said, well, you haven't sent us the approval drawings. So that means that, we've got 15-day terms, and these are now 30 days past due. So 45 days ago, we sent you approval drawings. You responded, thanks. And to this date, those are still sitting in your inbox, unforwarded along. And when you got the invoice for the approval drawings, that wasn't even a flag to you that, hey, maybe
I should be paying attention.
Look for those.
Yeah. Nope. And then of course you get the drawings back from approval, and it's like, all right, we're ready to go to fabrication. And can you, did you roll in all of those approval changes?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love when they say, oh, they look pretty clean. Okay. But clean because they didn't mark up the details. The reality is they changed all the section sizes on the plans.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Or they wrote one note, refer to revised drawing, S1.2A.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Thank you. Much better.
Plan.
And what was the job? MDOS, where we got new drawings, and they were the 100% not for construction drawings.
Yes.
They're done, but don't actually build anything based on these drawings. Just, that's a bad idea, which we agree it is a bad idea to build anything from those drawings. But although that one was not particularly bad, I have to say. As far as contract drawings go, which isn't a high bar to set, really. Like, the contract drawings of today, to not be that bad is all right. But the reality is we almost never draw a building once anymore. It's always at least twice.
We've got one or two customers that I would say are more on the shady side of things, where they'll fabricate from our redlined drawings. Those are the only ones that we never usually have to redraw the entire building for.
Yeah.
But anyone that's clearly operating above board, they'll send us in the drawings, and it's like, oh yeah, this is a complete redo. And then you got to sit there and wonder, like, what do I charge for this? Like, do I just look at my base bid price and say it's that over again? Or how much do I discount off from that because I'm now familiar with the drawings?
Well, and a lot of times it can be even worse, though, because you'll get revised drawings, but they're not clouded.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So the only safe way to do that is to legitimately throw out the old drawings and do it over again, because you're starting from scratch, and that you just can't do that. You have to cloud your revisions.
Yeah.
Like, it actually makes me hurt even just to talk about it. Like, I feel pain on the inside about the amount of times we've been like, okay, nothing changed on this drawing. And then it turns out later that there was some stupid, they revised a general note and didn't cloud it.
Right.
My friggin' favorite, well, not my least favorite, was we were working on that job, the one with the lousy engineer, the connection engineer.
Yep.
And we're having a conversation, and there are loads shown on the plan. 25 kips, 35 kips, whatever, right? These are the reactions.
Oh, no, they were in the hundreds of kips.
Yep. And then there was a general note. There was a note on the plan sheet, right? Say S102 that said, wherever loads aren't shown on the plan, it's 15 kips. But then in the general notes on like S0.0A, there was a note, if we don't show any loads, it's 30 kips. And I'm like, all right, clearly that 15 kip note is the one that governs, right? Because it's on the specific plan. Like, and this is the thing that I couldn't get through to this connection engineer. Once I find that load, I don't continue to go look for it. That's not a thing. Once I find the information, if I happen to go and see that information someplace else, sure, I'll point out that conflict. But I don't go looking for information point number 2, right? Like, I'm not writing a historical paper on the contract drawings and I'm trying to find multiple references. Once I have the information, that's it. If it conflicts someplace else, that's not my problem. Now, once I notice it, yes, absolutely, I've got to point it out. And that was the funny thing is after the conversation with him, I asked him, well, what do we want to do? He's like, well, I'm just going to hope they don't notice. No, you can't do that. That's not acceptable. You have to tell them, hey, you're counting on this and we're counting on that. What is it? What's going on? And he didn't want to do that because he'd already done some calculations. It's like, tough noogies, buddy. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
That's the job.
You own the connection design on this job, not us. Like, we're just on this project. We're just the lowly detailers. If you had picked us to do the engineering and we're doing it through our engineer, then this would be our responsibility. But it's not. So you got to deal with it. My child is anxiously awaiting one of his friends to come over and hang out for the day. And I don't know if you've ever had that situation, but they just sit by the door at the moment that it's prescribed. Because with parents, a drop-off or something like that, it's around this time. Right. Somewhere...
You've got a plus or minus 15-minute window.
Right. It's not like a party. It's not a special event or something like that. It's just come over and hang out for the day. Yep. That's fine. But now they're just going to sit and watch the window and continually ask me what time it is. So what do you think about Slack? So we use Slack in-house to do our communication. As probably most of you know, like, everything that we do, obviously, is not in an office. We all work out of our homes. And we used to use Google Hangouts, but it was... not great, not a lot of features. So we switched to...
really, the issue was the features it had were going away.
Yeah, and Google is constantly doing that with their products. Like, they introduce a new product with new features and then just ditch the old one.
Right.
Or just don't even cancel it. They just leave it to die.
Yep.
Speaking of leave it to die, this is kind of almost a non sequitur. But what is it about SDS2 that has them still developing for old versions of software? I don't know any other companies that do that. It's just SDS2.
Well, as I understand it, if they come across some bug or issue that they're working on fixing in a current version, and that specific fix is something that they can just plug into one of the older versions, then they will do that and update the version. That's my understanding of the situation anyway.
Yeah, but still, I don't know. It's, well, and even their whole, like, the whole upgrade path is strange, right? Like, with most software, it's like it pops up. It's like, hey, do you want to update? And you're like, yes, and then you've updated. With SDS2, it's not like we have on our computers. We've got SDS2 2018.14, 2018.15, 2018.17, 2018.22. Like they're all there. It's weird. I don't get it.
I think it does come in handy though when you upgrade to a new version and encounter a new bug, because you can at least go back
Yeah.
and sidestep the issue. Of course, that means you're also surrendering whatever features you upgraded to get in the first place. So.
Right. Well, and then it's have you ever gone into a deli and they have those like those pre-made sandwiches?
Sure.
And you're like, all right, well, I don't like tomato. That one's got tomato, but I kind of want cheese, and that one doesn't have cheese. That's how you're picking your version of SDS2. Like, I'd really like my weld symbols to work correctly, but I also kind of need the plan views to work out. Like, I can't have that bug where, all of a sudden my plans go to poop because there was some bug in it. And right now we've got a situation with. I'm not even sure if it's the latest version of 2018, but it's definitely 2019, where there are weld symbols that need to exist in the world that you just can't create.
Right. Like a double-sided all around. If you've got like a continuity plate in a column on an HSS column, something like that.
Yeah, and that one's easy to solve, right? You just add another arrow and you can fix that problem. But the one that really bothers me is the square groove weld. You can't put the size in. Right. The size is one thing. I get it, right? You should be putting in the effective throw. Not that anybody cares or notices, right? Literally, I've had one shop guy ever call me and say something about it, and it was literally just for him to prove to me that he knew that if you put it in parentheses, it's the effective throw. And I was like, woo, whoop-de-doo for you. And I was like, okay, we'll start, we'll change those for you. But most of the time when we do it, everybody's like, what do these parentheses mean?
Which is scary, right?
Yeah. Yes, it's actually quite terrifying. So, all right, you got to hold the fort for a second. My guest is right. Ben!
Oh, I got to hold the fort. Sweet. Well, so one of the things that we've been dealing with is we've got Slack as our internal chat and whatnot interface, and we also use it for some project management. There's some different add-on apps that you can get for it. One is called Kyber, and that's something that we've started using for a little while now. It kind of lets you assign tasks to people, and they can check off when they're done, and it helps you to kind of keep people organized. That's sort of become our solution for project management. We had Fab Suite for a while, and that does better at, well, for what it was, did better at managing the document side of things. But as far as the day-to-day tasks, it just fell short. It just didn't do anything that we were looking for. I hear seat creaking. Are you back?
I'm back. Are you talking about Fab Suite?
Grumbling a little bit about Fab Suite, but mostly was talking about Slack and starting to use Kyber as our project management.
Oh yeah, we've been through so many different project management, all of them, right? And they all end up being more work than they save. Nothing has ever.
I would say the closest thing has been Kyber. And even then, that only really comes into play when we're buried.
Yeah.
When everybody's just got one task at a time, nah. But if everybody's got a to-do list because we're getting crushed, like earlier on in this year when we had work coming out of our ears, that was a must-have.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we used to maintain for a while, like in Fab Suite, was like an in and out log, right? Oh, we sent the drawings in for approval on this date or whatever. But we use Gmail for everything, so anything that we need, any evidence, hey, we sent the drawings out on this date, is right there, right? And we also use a very specific folder structure, which is designed that, every file gets dated, it's named properly, so that you can look in that folder and find the history of everything that's happened. You know what all the revisions are. You don't need a separate document to do that. All the documentation is right there. And, you know, in the past, when a customer said, oh, you delayed the project, we've been able to go back there and say, well, no, we didn't. Here are all the dates that we sent stuff, and here's where we got it back, and here are the revisions and why all this stuff changed. It's I don't know. I don't like adding steps just because I feel like I'm supposed to, right? Like, we used to do that at Hudson Steel. Was, well, we have to keep a drawing log in order to be AISC certified. So we would just once a month go through and make up a drawing log, and it was like, this is stupid. Like, we have the information, like, we have the transmittal letters. All of this information is available to us if we need it. But it doesn't need to be in some stupid spreadsheet. That's just a waste of time. Like, it's make work. The one tool, which I've talked about on the channel before, that I do recommend people use is Follow Up Then, which is just an email service, for instance, and the shortcut for it is fut.io. So, like, if you send out your approval drawings and you BCC at 2 weeks at fut.io, or whatever other, you know, time, 2 days at fut.io, in 2 weeks it'll send you back an email and say, hey, you sent these out 2 weeks ago, and you need to follow up. And that is a super, super useful thing. It sounds like the chat room is pretty up on Slack. Jason uses it. Jason, I'm going to go with Rail maybe, and Curtis Gallipo are both using it. But and I was watching another YouTube show. I can't remember what it was, but they talk about Slack as the, you know, redheaded stepchild to Discord, which is a gaming chat service. But Slack has some plugins that we really like. You know, the ability to attach Dropbox files to it, to set reminders, stuff like that, that I don't think Discord actually has. And Jason talks about adding it to Outlook, which I hate Outlook. I don't know why, but I have always hated Outlook. I think it's from back in the days when I was like a rebel using Thunderbird and Firefox, because I was like, oh, Outlook is the big bad, you know, Microsoft Office product, and Microsoft is bad. So,
right. Well, me, whenever I think of Outlook, I think of all the viruses and issues that used to come along with it. But that's 20-year-old knowledge at this point. Like, yeah. I don't know. I was riding along on the technology train, and then at some point I kind of stepped off a few times.
Yeah, and that's something I worry about too, because like, we're right at that age where we could stagnate and not continue to learn new software and new techniques and stuff like that. And I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy like Shannon, who's like, oh, the pencil is still the fastest way to detail. It's like, dude, you are out of your mind. And it doesn't matter like how many times you demonstrate to them that you're not even in the same playing field as we are. This is ridiculous.
Do you remember whenever we wanted to draw roof frames, he had a ream of Xerox copied blank frames that we had to hand fill out the section sizes and all the dimensions for?
Yep. It was fantastic. And I was like,
that was his way of economizing the drafting situation.
Yeah. And for a while, right, when I didn't know how to use AutoCAD, because when I started, it was just, hey, here's a computer, go detail steel.
Right.
Okay. Like, I think I used a program called IntelliCAD, which was like knockoff AutoCAD. And for years, I didn't even know that the donut command existed to create a filled hole. So I would just draw a circle and then fill it in. And it wasn't until, like, you know, I'm sitting over somebody's shoulder and they, you know, do that other command. I was like, oh, hey, that's a lot faster. And then, you know, I started from there. The coolest thing on AutoCAD that I ever learned, though, I got really excited about, were something called, I think it was either dynamic or something like that. Dynamic blocks, where you could put in criteria, and it would do different things and show you a different drawing. You could click on a, what's it called? The snap thing. Oh, come on. What's the word?
The node.
Node, yes. You could click on the node and drag it, and there were different nodes that looked different, and they would do different things. Which is
so you could take a 2-row shear plate and drag it, and it would be 3, 4, 5, 6, however many you wanted.
Right. Or with your example of a roof frame, you could take a 5-foot roof frame and make it into a 7-foot roof frame, and then move the opening around and all that stuff, and it would just update all the dimensions, and it was cool. But it's making me kind of transition my topic, though, into why SDS2 is has a complete lack of nodes. Like, if you're in SDS2 in the 3D modeling environment and you're in an isometric view, you can do nothing to that model other than highlight things and edit them. Like, you can't move, you can't stretch, none of those things can you do in an isometric view. You got to get yourself in a plan view, you got to get yourself, in an elevation or whatever else. Because there's no restraining, there's no constraints on how you move things. It just lets you pick a point and then pick some other 3D point in some other realm.
Right. Whereas if you were even working in like SketchUp, and you go to drag something, it tries to snap to one plane or another, and you see it shifting along it as you go.
Right.
Kind of see that, though, when you're working with that component. What is it? Surfaces connection?
Yes.
You're dragging along a plane and you can see the material.
They're starting to get it, right? Like the surfaces connection component does it. The railing component, or the new railing members I think that's 2018 and up. When you're putting them in, you're meant to be looking at it isometrically, and you can actually see stuff happening as you go, which is great. But like, it needs to come, and we need to add all of these other nodes. Like, there should be a node in the center of a beam on the top flange that when you click on that, you're moving that beam right in that direction. And there should be one on the top flange at the end that you're stretching that beam. All of those things kind of need to happen. Same thing with connections. Like, there should be connection nodes where, okay, I just need to move this down a bit. Especially in 3D modeling, a lot of times you're going in there and you're typing in a dimension for something. Really, all you want is to clear something. I just need it to be a little bit clear of this. I don't want to have to go in there and take all the measurements and figure out, okay, it's exactly this much, right? There are these things, I need to be a 1/4 inch clear or whatever else. Just drag it until it's clear. And instead, you've got to surface on it and get your ruler and lay out construction lines, and it's a whole thing. And it's not right. Like, I'm a total whiner. I get that it's not a big deal in the small, like, each one isn't a big deal, but in the aggregate of thousands of users doing this thousands of times, it starts to really kind of add up. And it just doesn't feel fun, right? Like, being in the modeling interface. I've drawn stuff in SketchUp. Like, I actually did paid work in SketchUp for a while. I got paid to do architectural renderings in it. And it was fun. The whole time it was fun, right? You click on this node and you stretch stuff and you smush stuff and you pull it, and you kind of feel like you're in a game interface. You're kind of, immersed in this land, and you know how to control it. And it doesn't have that same feeling in SDS2, even in the latest versions of it. And I think that's a little bit sad. Like, I think we're losing out on some of the joy.
Yeah, that would be, something that would be kind of cool. My wife got into doing a lot of stuff in SketchUp. That was a big thing for her. Was she was modeling up our house, and she took a lot of measurements, great detail, great detail, and has done a lot of renderings of the inside of our house so that she can manipulate colors and materials and whatnot as we were going through and renovating and updating everything. So after watching her do that for a long period of time, and she got really good at it and really fast, that was why I was like, you should try detailing, because if you can model in here, maybe you could do some modeling with SDS. And it did not go that way. Now she's picking up scrubbing, she's learning that, but the modeling was on almost instant turn off for her.
Yeah, because it's
There's
not
big learning.
intuitive.
Right.
And I'm really hoping like a lot to have a lot of conversations with people at the users group conference about listen, we don't need a new toy, right? We don't need some new feature or whatever else. The thing that we need most is to work on improving this interface to make it a little bit faster and more intuitive. So those things that right now are 4-button clicks become 3-button clicks. You know, there's one less dialog box, or you're not guessing at what something is. Like there's when you change a field, the model updates and it looks like what you want it to look like. You look very confused. Is somebody asking you a tough question?
No, I'm looking at a section. So they've got a W14 by 30, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to be bearing on a wall. So I see the section view. I go to the section view. Section view shows the beam floating some nondescript amount over a concrete pocket. Okay. There's a blow up detail. So I click on the blow up detail. And it shows that the concrete is down 1'6", and that this thing is attaching to that concrete with epoxy anchors. And they call it as a W shape, but the hidden lines tell me this is a tube, so it just looks funny right off the bat. And there's no grout. It's just floating. It's just hovering over this concrete lip.
And this again, these are from licensed professionals, right? Like
Power plant.
right. This is a thing that like if my kid handed me his homework and said I'm done with this homework, and I looked at it and I saw it looked like that, I would send him to his room without dinner. Like he's 9 years old and I expect higher quality out of him than that. Like it's just you're not done yet. Like you've been paid to design a building, you're fundamentally failing. Jason again in the chat, he's talking about SDS2 being built on top of Unix and how now they just keep building and building and building on top of it. And yeah, we've talked about that in the past, and you hate to say it, but at some point it's like you've got to start a new engine, right? Like you've got to, I don't know, there's only so much that you can build on top of an old Chevelle. You can add a turbocharger and all you want. And they've done a good job of adding a lot of stuff that people want. But at some point, what people want is something that is built on a modern day engine, and
I got a bad feeling this sheet's not going to exist.
you ever have those drawings where you get the circular reference? Every detail refers you to another detail that ends up just referring you back to the plan.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at here. So this says C drawing. It gives us drawing for W-shaped post to concrete. Now, that drawing has 15 details on it. And I'm looking this over. Not a one of them has a post. Not a one. This is... However, there is a typical shear lug box out detail, so apparently somewhere there's going to be columns with shear keys.
Oh, well, we get to use the shear keys component at least.
I hope so. I can't find anything about these columns, though. These seem to all be unsized. I don't know if they would have been on the for construction drawings had they decided to issue them, or
this is
where
where
they maybe not even in scope. I don't know.
This is where we get to that weird spot too, where we have to ask ourselves, like, at what point do we charge for writing RFIs?
This job may be one of those cases.
Yeah, maybe.
I think this is going to be a solid afternoon of writing RFIs, and then we just park the job. I don't see how we can even move forward with this.
Yeah. So
there's anchor bolts, but no columns or base plates given. It just says column, no size, There's no base plate thickness. There's no
What
dimension
have I
to it.
done?
I've got a bolt pattern. There's beams. I can throw in some beams, I guess.
Ooh, we should just send in the approval drawings and just cloud the plan and say furnish details. There's
Usually when you see a job that's supposed to be all technical, like if it's a power, I know that nuclear plants are super obnoxious as far as like every member gets its own piece mark, its own dedicated thing, its own dedicated detail and things like that. And bridges are kind of similar in how like they require a lot of precision in the drawings. This is a diesel power plant, and there just seems to be no caring at all at what's going on here. Like they're just throwing some.
Well, they only care about one thing, and it's getting the drawings out so that they can say they've got the drawings out, right? Like they had a deadline and they met the deadline. And now they can kind of push the ball down the road. And like at some point we're complacent with it. It's like, is that the right word, complacent? Where like you're also guilty. Complicit, that's the word I was looking for. We're complicit because we want to get the job out too. Like we want to get the drawings done, get them out for approval so that we can move on to another job. Because we've had this constant thing back and forth with fabricators where you park the job and you tell them, listen, the job is parked, it's not my fault. And at the time, they're like, yep, you're right, it's not your fault. But then inevitably, those drawings come back and they're revised and they're like, okay, when can I have my drawings? And you're like, well, we can start it for you in a week. And that, for the detailers that I've dealt with, is actually a really reasonable amount of time to start it, right? A week. I've heard of detailing companies, firms, where it's like, well, we'll get to you in a month. And even with the week, they're like, what do you mean? We got the drawings back, I need them done. And it's like, I cannot just sit here and wait for your drawings to come back. I can't do it.
Right.
If you want to pay me to sit here and twiddle my thumbs, I'll be more than happy to do it. But
right. Well, what they're doing is they're confusing you with an in-house detailer that's just at their beck and call to do whatever they want.
Right. And that's you can't do that. Well, we have the same problem with the big stair project that we're working on, where the customer just keeps changing his mind on how he wants to put it together. And like one of the things that the biggest problem isn't the mind changes, right? It's that he wanted us along at every step of the way to ask him how to put something together, right? And we saw a stair and we drew a stair. And we're like, you know what? Here's the stair. This works, it's efficient, it's effective, all of these things. But he had other ideas. And I certainly don't think they're better ideas. I think they were worse ideas. But either way, if you don't convey them to me beforehand and in a meaningful way, they just don't count, right?
Well, you also have to remember too that you should add this in. He did give us very specific instructions and he heavily marked up plans. This is how I want this to be done.
Right.
So he had given us all the direction that we needed in order to finish that up.
Right.
The problem was then when we saw that in motion, he changed his mind on everything.
Right. Well, and two, it was like every time that we reached a point where we had to make a decision, right? Should I use a clip angle here or a shear tab? He wanted us to ask him which to use. And it's like, what did you hire us for then? Like, our job is not to produce the drawings. It's to have the knowledge and the understanding that we can make a stair, right? You know, if all you wanted was a draftsman, then hire yourself a draftsman and tell him every line and everything to do. We're paid as detailers to take this general idea of a stair and turn it into an actual stair based on industry knowledge. That's our whole job. And I don't know. It's been extremely frustrating, which is why we have employees so that we don't have to deal with it.
Absolutely. Although that guy's making a career out of that job, that's for sure. I mean, it's paying his salary, so
Right, right. Well, and it has to. Like when you draw the same stair 4 times, it's gonna take at least 3 times as long. And I don't know. And like I'm trying to too, because you have to try to maintain that like professional relationship with the customer. And sometimes it's really hard not to just be like, no, that's stupid. Don't do that. Like, what are you doing? This is a bad idea. I'm getting tense. We need to like change the topic. Jason's in the chat room and he says, "Hey, now, he says you make I think with your he's making a career out of it. It's not he's making a career out of it in a bad way.
yeah.
We're getting paid for the work. It's fine." But
He's getting his money. It's I would like to be able to put our people on other projects at some point for a job that we booked 7 months ago.
literally, we booked it in January.
Booked it in January, and the goal was to be done with it in February.
Yep. And it would,
And-
like, legitimately, those were legit timelines. We're talking about 4 stair towers that are relatively simple.
3.5 even.
Yeah.
One of them isn't really a tower. It's just 2 flights of stairs.
Yeah. And here we are, almost 7 months later, still messing around, still making changes to it. And it's like, man, I legit, like, under pressure, if we'd put everybody to it and really had to, we could have had that whole thing done and ready for fabrication in 2 weeks. I mean, checked, rescrubbed, field, everything. 2 weeks, no problem. And instead, here we are 7 months later, still working on that job.
Yeah, because if we put everybody on it now, we would blow all the schedules of all of our other projects because of every revision that keeps coming along.
Right. Well, and that was the problem. Is initially, as things got held and stuff like that, we got behind schedule on it, and we were behind schedule to some degree. We were culpable for the schedule delays, and he's like continued to treat the job as if we're the ones that are behind, even when months later that's not the case anymore. You've revised these stairs several times. We are no longer the reason that this job is behind schedule. We put overtime into it. We all sorts of stuff to make that right, and now it's been made right, and it's your turn to start eating some stuff.
Right. Well, and we got the job back, and it was approved, and we were ready to turn it around and put it in for fabrication. And even then he was saying, "Well, I want to change how this is done. I got to change how this is framed." And then one of the things had to do with how he could bend plate material.
Oh yeah.
And so all of a sudden, he's incapable of bending this plate material that's been agreed upon for 5 months.
Right. Well, and so the stringers were all bent plate. Right, they're all bent plate stringers, and it was very constrained as far as the walls are basically already up, and they need the minimum width of this stair. And now it turns out that they need the flanges of the stringers to be wider. Well, the only way to accomplish this, based on the clearances in the well, were to actually narrow the treads. And so we get this, and it's like, all right, we're changing the stringer size, and we're changing the well dimensions. Poof.
When do I get my drawings?
Right. Poof.
And it's all approved, so where's
Right.
my...
Right,
Where's
and it's broken apart too. It's not like this thing has maintained its intelligence and we can just stretch the treads. No, we've got to individually go through and mar that material and make it back. And he wanted to do this thing where he drilled a hole in each stair pan and through the carrier channel or pitch block, depending on who you're talking to. And his concept, his reasoning for it is like, well, I like them to be able to draw in the stringers and then just drop a bolt through it. And I'm like, well, okay, I guess. But, people have been putting stairs up for a long time, And literally never have I drawn a pan stair that has a erection bolt in the pans. I've never done that until this job. And
Right. And when you put all those holes in it, now they all become graphical. So when you modify that stair and it reprocesses, it leaves those there,
right,
puts in the blank carrier angles, doubling them all up.
right. And then we needed to narrow that tread, and it was like, I'm sorry, dude, but you've got 40 hours of work on this stair to redraw it now, because we made all of those changes to get it ready for fabrication the first time, and now you want to redo everything. It's like, I don't know. So he called and he screamed at me and yelled, and I just sat there patiently and quietly for as long as I could. And it was like, I'm pushing back, like, no, this isn't our fault. Like, you have to understand, you've made considerable changes. But it's hard. It's really hard as a project manager to sit on that call and not just scream at that dude and just be like, this is entirely your fault. That's where those are the conversations where I earn my money, where I keep patience with customers who are being completely unreasonable. Robert Scott says he's a one-man band, and parking a job is awful for him. We used to have that problem when we first started, when it was just the two of us, and we ran into an RFI, and it was like, this is the job that we have, and we can't establish the grid.
Right. You gotta stop a job immediately, and you're a one-man show. It's not like you've got 10 other jobs lined up and booked, and I just switched off. No, I'm gonna do this job till it's done, then I'm gonna get another job.
Right. And when we started, like, we calculated our businesses, like whether our business was doing well, on how many weeks that we could live on the salary we could make based on doing those jobs. Like, how much money did we have in the bank when we started? Like $2,000?
When we first started the company, we had $2,000 of cash to start, and we had started with some moonlighting. So we had about $10,000 of accounts receivable from our own personal, what would you call it? As an independent subcontractor working under our own social security numbers, basically.
Yeah.
So we had $2,000 of actual cash, and $10,000 we were praying nobody screwed us out of. That was promised to us at a future date.
Right. Really praying too. Like, and it's funny.
Yeah.
We still use 2-week terms to this day. And a lot of times we get pushback on it, and a lot of times, all right, whatever. Just make sure we're paid before you want your fabrication drawings, because otherwise, And it's strange, because these fabricators should be multi-million-dollar operations, right? Like, if you're fabricating these large buildings, you need to have some liquidity, and they'll come.
A lot of capital.
Right, they'll come to you and be like, "I'm sorry, I don't have the money to write your check for $1,500. Like, we haven't been paid yet." Are you kidding? Like, you don't have $1,500? You've got to be like, you're messing with me, right? Like, $1,500. And then do you really want to work with that person in the future? Like, can you continue to do stuff for them?
Right. And if they can't scrape together a couple of $100 to pay you for something, what happens if you land a serious job with them? What happens if they owe you 5 figures and up?
Right.
And they just decide, I'm broke. I'm done.
Right.
We've seen it happen. We've had jobs where the fabricator went out of business on the job.
Yeah.
And we were just out money because we didn't have a contract with anybody else. And this was prior to us kind of really sorting out how do you file liens and go after somebody to get your money. So our customer just disappeared into the wind, and we had no way to collect our money. So we were just out. It's probably $800, something like that. But, when it was just the two of us, and
right.
that was fortune. That was, hey, one of us isn't getting paid this week, sort of a thing,
Yeah. Yeah. We had a lot of those weeks.
Yeah.
Especially early, where it was like, I guess we're eating shredded wheat for the weekend. I don't know.
Shredded paper seems like. Yeah, we had a couple of times where we would take turns. Like I had to hold my breath for a month and not get paid, and then I got paid and would get caught up, and you had to hold your breath for a month. And
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too, because we talked to a lot of detailers through the channel or through whatever else about how great it is, to get out of a fabricator shop and to work for yourself. But it's not easy. Like it is not easy. It is extremely stressful at times. It is extremely dangerous. There's a lot of risk. You better have a supportive wife, because if they're not on board with it, man, it's gonna be a miserable time. When you tell them, listen, sorry, I know we wanted to go away this weekend, but this job just came back from approval, and they promised us, overtime pay to get it done.
well, I remember right off, it was probably our first winter. Yeah, our first winter, we had a really great, successful job. It paid us out huge. And we said, you know what? Both families, we're all going to Disney. This is going to be awesome.
Yep.
And you were taking phone calls because we had hired out a subcontractor to do a job right before we left, thinking, oh, this, he's an American detailer. He seems to come with good references. And this guy just fell apart. And so you're trying to handle this job over the phone,
right,
from states away.
Yeah, and the guy, like, the job that we gave him legitimately was the easiest job that I've ever seen come through our door. It was literally a square building with flat steel, and it was one of those, like,
no gingerbread.
Yeah, yep, next to no gingerbread. And it was that slow play. Oh, well, I'll have it for you Tuesday. And then it's, okay, Wednesday. Well, it's not ready. We'll have it Friday. And we're coming up on the end, and it's like, oh, man, this sucks. So now it's not done. I got the customer calling me. I'm in friggin' Disney World. And at that point, like, we weren't big enough or, sound enough that I could just say, hey, guys, we're going on vacation. We won't be around for a week.
Right. The hope was that everything would be out for approval, and while it was, like, we had the timing of it was supposed to be down, but because he didn't get the drawings out to us.
Yeah. That was a lesson well learned. Like, we've never subcontracted a job since. Like, the only thing that we ever let other people help us with is stuff that if we needed to, we could do it in half a day. And we need a little bit of time to get some of this out, or just to save us some time. But it was a lesson well learned.
I think since then, the only thing we've ever subbed out, and this just happened this recently, it was in February. You were on vacation for a week, and we had another guy that was on vacation for a couple weeks, and I was dealing with that stair nonsense all being revised. And I hired a couple of people to help bang out, like, a dumpster gate and some loose lintels, where it's like, I would like to maybe go to sleep tonight. If somebody could cover for me a little bit, that would be great.
Right.
That was it.
Yeah.
Beyond that, we keep it all in house.
Yeah, and I don't know that I'll ever recover from that mentally.
Oh no,
it was like
that hurt us so bad.
Yeah. You say the word.
It cost us a customer at the end of the day. I mean, they didn't come back again.
Right, a big customer, which actually, in hindsight, they ended up going bankrupt. So maybe it saved us from not getting paid, but
it was something else in the long run.
Yeah. We recently had a positive experience with a fabricator where, like, the relationship actually went the way that it was supposed to. Like, we did a big job for them and everything went well, except there was a RFI response that included some revisions that weren't clouded, right?
Right. It was one of those, it was a answer to a question we didn't ask, sort of a thing.
Right. And so around the perimeter of the building, there was all these like patios, and then in the interior of the building, there were some slab edges. Well, it turned out that we asked the question, where's the slab edges at the patios? And they sent us back this drawing that had those patios. But also in the inside of the building, they had some slab dimensions that they were changing, but they didn't cloud them. Right.
Right. They clouded the patio ones around the perimeter.
Right. Right. So anyways, we missed that it was a revision, and we're slightly it was kind of a weird thing, right? Like where it's kind of our fault, it's kind of their fault, the designer's fault, but of course the fabricator's never going to get paid for it. But the fabricator actually did they called us and were like, listen, this is how much we paid to get this fixed. What can we do? And we actually okay, yep, you guys had to pay for something, and it's partly our mistake, and here's a bunch, we'll do some detailing for you for free, which is a greater value to you. Like if you want cash, it's going to be X, but if you want, we'll be happy to give you more labor for that rate. And they were they understood that it wasn't completely our fault, that there wasn't malice or ignorance or something else happened there. They wanted to work it out. All of the steps that were taken were the steps that it seems like a professional company would want to take, right? Get us the money back, correct the mistake, etc. But it's such a rare thing that it was exceptional to me, right? That they actually, other than just, we're just not going to pay any more of your invoices. And it always seems that the amount of the back charge is always in excess of whatever you're owed.
Right.
And
well, sometimes it's even in excess of what you got paid for the entire job.
Right. And
we've had people try to throw back charges at us because their CNC files didn't turn out right, which I think we've discussed that before. These guys, what an engineer would charge us for something to do calculations versus their hourly rate for a shop monkey operating a CNC machine.
Right. And it's I understand that, we all inflate our rates to include all of the stuff, but if what you're trying to do is to get your money back or to make up for it, I can work with you on that. But if you're just trying to get as much money out of me as you can, no, we're not going to play that game, right? We gave you CNC files. We have zero control over how that CNC comes out. Zero.
Right.
We press a button.
I hit the button, and I export to you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And after that job, we actually went through and put that into our terms that, listen, the CNC is what it is. We hit the button, and it's for 99% of our customers, it's fine. But you're paying for the drawings and you're paying for the model. The CNC we give you for free, right? That's a free thing, so that they can't come back to us and try to back charge us for it. It's no, that's
yeah.
We've done the same amount of work.
And you can't go around charging somebody change order rate as a back charge to that too. So, if you're trying to recoup your losses, you can recoup your losses. But I know that you're not paying that shop employee more than $20 an hour,
right.
Let's say.
Right.
You don't get $120 an hour to back charge for his time. That's just ridiculous.
Yep. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to pay you for that. So we've been talking about the bitter stuff. I suppose I did have the upshot that, hey, one of the fabricators is actually cool. But one of the things too, we talk about payment all the time, and I think the relationship is probably the most important part of that, right? The amount of times that fabricators are late really doesn't bother me, right? You can be late as long as you're still communicating. If you're telling me what's going on and when you'll have that payment and all that stuff, to a point, it's fine. I get it. It bothers me on some level that a steel fabricator can't write a check for the amount of what is essentially 2% of his project. That always unsettles me. But I understand to a large degree it's they have that money, it's just not allocated to that project, and it's an accounting whatever snafu. But I don't even know what I was talking about anymore.
You were looking for an upside.
Oh, yeah, an upside.
Lost that, huh?
I got nothing. I got nothing. I mean, the market seems to be up in general, which is this year is much better than previous years.
This year's been crazy, and we were at the NASCC. They were talking about how the market was going down, and how they expect that the second half of 2019 to be really down, and then after that, they're expecting it to tank. But we're booking. I mean, we booked more work in the beginning of this year than we've ever booked, and we're getting through the last of it now. And I mean, we just wanted to clear our plates. We've got people that are just sending us drawings, in jobs and saying, hey, give me a price. I need to get this started. So other than the formality of you throwing a price on it, we're not looking for the work, and it's just coming to us.
Right. Well, and to some degree, detailers and maybe fabricators too, we have a certain bit of just fatalism. Like, whenever things are up, I'm just waiting for the fall.
Right.
And I don't know if it's just PTSD from 2008 where everything just completely, crapped the bed, but it really does feel like that. Like, still in my mind to this day, when you tell me, what our how much money we have in accounts receivable and actual cash on hand and all that stuff, I work that out in the terms of, well, if the economy crashes today, how long can I afford to live on how much money we have?
Right.
Even in the up times, that's how I think about it every time. Is okay. Well, if everything goes to shit, what's going to be left? How much am I going to be left holding in this bag here?
If we were bigger Game of Thrones fans, I think we would just walk around every day saying winter is coming.
Yeah. So I haven't watched the final season of that, and now I kind of don't want to, because I hear all of the whisperings of it. It was very disappointing. But then I don't know. It's weird too that to me that you haven't watched that, because we're work married. We spend so much time talking to each other that I know all of your stories, and vice versa.
Right.
But there are shows that I've watched that you haven't watched, and that bothers me. Right? You need to catch up so that I can make those pop culture references to you, and you can get it. I can quote any movie, even just one line from a movie, and you know what it is I'm talking about.
Sure.
Or a Simpsons episode.
Oh, yeah. I got those all cold.
Yeah, those are... Well, the first 15 seasons. After that, it went to crap.
Well, yeah. Quantify that.
So let's talk a little bit about project management, because maybe there's some wisdom out in the world that we don't have. I mean... In all of our efforts, have we ever found something, even for a brief time, that worked, that made us happy?
As far as project management software goes?
Yeah.
I mean, Kyber's okay as a to-do list manager.
Go Bills.
But,
that's not project management, though.
There's more you can do with it, but we just haven't got too much into it. You can attach files and whatnot, but it's just not quite a project management suite of some sort. It's really just an organizer for your messages.
Well, and it's always felt to me like the input necessary for project management software is too cumbersome. No matter what it is, I'm never going to spend that time. Maybe it's just my inherent laziness as a person, but like filling out even just a spreadsheet of, okay, this, we got this task on this day and it's expected to take this long, because the usefulness is always like exactly proportional to the effort that you put into it, like garbage in, garbage out. And I want to put in garbage and have good stuff come out. I just do. Like, I just want it to figure it out.
You've tried for a very long time to just try to automate it where, like, the emails would automatically filter themselves where they're supposed to go and set up things. And it worked small scale initially, but once we booked a whole bunch of work, the filters kind of fell apart.
Yeah.
So it took everything from certain customers and just threw it all into one job folder, whether it was that job or not. Like, it just made a mess of things.
Right. And we've even tried hiring project managers who was like, all right, this is your job. It's just to keep this stuff straight. But without the understanding of what that file is that they've received, they just can't do it. There's just nothing, right?
Yeah. And I think that is where your favorite job title in the entire industry comes in.
Project Expediter.
Yeah. So you get an email, you get a phone call, whatever, you just forward it to that person and just here, you deal with this.
Right.
And so they have this rigid system where they don't have to understand much. They just have to follow the script. If it says this, do this. If it says this, do this, and they send out whatever they do, but it's always terrible for everyone else involved. So if you're a detailer, you're going to get a contract that the Project Expediter has slapped your price onto that ignores your quote and ignores your terms. And it will include terms about how you have to surrender your equipment on site if you're late and, they're going to take over your erecting equipment, things like that. And it's like, where did you find this thing? And do you understand who you're even issuing a contract to?
Oh, no, they don't. Curtis says we should look into teamwork projects, so I'll look at it. Right. We have a problem too with our phones that we haven't been able to kind of figure out a good way. So basically, how it works now is we have a Google Voice number, and that comes to my cell phone. I can also assign it to ring other people's phones, but I don't want it to do that. Generally, if somebody's calling, I answer the phone. But when they're calling to talk to you or to Jason or Tom or Crystal, right now basically what I do is I just do a merged call. And I called up, I talked to Ring Central about, hey, there's got to be a better digital solution for this, right? Like, they call into a central thing, and then I get a pop up on my computer and I can transfer it, right? Like a VoIP solution. And I talked to them, and they're like, yeah, here it is. And they wanted like $130 a month to do something like that. No phones on site, nothing. Like, just $130. And I was like, no, like that's a ridiculous amount of money. Right.
Just a bit.
The fact that it was even 3 digits offended me deeply. No, I'm not going to do that for you.
And it's a phone number that you're providing too?
Yeah.
So all they're doing is managing the transfer of phone calls. Yep. Call forwarding, essentially.
Yeah. So why is it you think people call and then don't do anything? Like, they'll call and I won't be able to get to it, and I'll see that I have a missed call, but I don't have either a voicemail, a text message, or an email. I got a call from them, and then they just hung up. I get that from my wife, right? Like, she just wanted to say hi. But from a customer or a fabricator or whatever, tell me what you're calling about. Give me an idea so that when I call you back, I can be prepared to have an intelligent discussion with you. And you don't have to sit there while I launch my model and open up the drawings and find the grid that you're talking about.
How often do you call back and they're blindsiding you with something, like they fabricated something wrong and they want to blame you for having drawn it wrong or something to that effect?
Yeah.
Is that usually what it winds up being? Or
that's only about 10% of the time, but that's what I always assume it is, right? If my phone rings, terror is struck into my heart just about every time that something has gone wrong, right? And it's like that's almost never the case.
Right.
But
You've got to fear the worst.
right, right, or or my favorite thing is when you're behind on a project and you've told the people, listen, we know we're behind, we're working on it as fast as we can, we have everybody on it, and then they just call you every 2 hours to ask how you're doing on it. And it's like literally
Have the epiphany once, like right on the phone with you.
Yeah. He was like, so by talking to me right now, you're actually losing time to get the job done. I was like, yes, like the drawings are in front of me. I'm trying to scrub them, but instead I'm talking to you about how long it's going to take me to scrub them. That's not going to help you. And
I wish they would all have that epiphany.
well, yeah, I was talking to another customer, and he's like, well, when do you think we have the drawings? And I said, well, I think you can have them Friday. Okay, well, do you think it'll be morning Friday or afternoon Friday or evening? And I'm like, dude, I cannot pin it down that much for you. I can't. There's no way for me to do that. It takes as long as if you want me to promise you a date, it'll be next Thursday.
There you go.
Right. Like I'm telling you how long I expect it to take, but things go wrong in detailing, and then we have to fix them. It happens all the time. Oh, it turns out, it looked like we had all those angles coped, but they weren't coped, and they're just slamming through there. We got to go back through and fix that.
Yep.
If you want, I can send it to you without the angles coped, and you can be happy with it. But otherwise, you just got to give me the time to fix it, and it takes as long as it takes. Sorry. And I've never gotten particularly good at padding my estimates for how long things are going to take, because I want to give them real information, right? Like here's how long I think it's going to take us based on how long it's seen, my experience, all that stuff. But if STS2 decides to take a giant poop in the middle of our project, and we have to delete a bunch of members and redo them, then it's going to take us longer. Or if it turns out that, that moment connection isn't actually compatible with what we're, with the system design, and we've got to manually put in all those connections, that's going to take longer. And I'm not going to charge you for it, but it's just, you got to wait for it.
So I just came across a note. I want to go over this with you for this power plant. So the little bit of backstory: these drawings were a bid set, okay, not for construction. When we won the job, fabricator told us, "Hey, you don't have to start on this job right away. I need you to start on it in a couple of weeks." By last Friday was the date. Essentially, we're expecting 4 construction drawings. Okay, so we sat on it. Well, yesterday, we had to ask him and say, hey, what's the deal? We've got to get going on this job. So he sends over updated for construction bulletin 3 drawings. Okay, sweet. So I go through and I look, and there's nothing about the structural drawings at all. It's all equipment. It's all electrical schematics. So I wrote back, said, hey, got these drawings. They in no way, shape, or form concern me. Where are the structurals? Are our structurals good? And he wrote back today, yeah, those are, the ones that we've got for bidding, those are going to be the construction drawings. So as I'm thumbing through these, I find a note, and this is an internal note from the design team to the design team. They've circled a detail. I'm going to change the name they've written to protect the innocent, but it says, missing lines. Please review PDFs before they are issued for bids. Bob may have a strategy so this doesn't happen over and over.
Well, that actually brings us to another topic. What was I? Oh, somebody the other day asked us for a copy of our check prints.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, no, you can't have our check prints. Like, if you told us in advance you wanted our check prints, then okay, I'll treat them. But like when somebody does something stupid on their drawings, I'll make a stupid comment in response to it, right? Like I'll circle it up and mark it. Plus, a lot of times we've got 5 different sets of check prints floating because we've got 5 different people working on checking different implements of it. And if you look at any one of them, they don't make any sense. Like, it's not listed in our deliverables. I understand your basic concept of, okay, well, some auditor's going to want to see it. But no, we work with a lot of certified fabricators, and it's just not part of it. And again, we have contract terms. Here's what we deliver, and here's what we don't. Those check prints are not for you, right? Like, I don't want you seeing where we screwed up and what we did that was stupid, and where I posted in a David Hasselhoff picture to make you chuckle while you were where you were drawing. It's just not something you're entitled to as one of our customers. And they're like, well, everybody gives them to us. Well, then you should ask for them in advance and let us know, because we're not prepared for that.
It needs to be negotiated and be part of the terms, right, as a deliverable. That's
right. Yeah, especially when we do model checking, we'll use the drawings as an aid in that process. But a lot of times, all you'll see in a check print for like a filler beam or even a simple girder is a highlight across it. That means we've gone through the model and checked all of the things.
Right.
But it's not highlighted like a traditional check print. It's just
right. And anything that's model checked is just fixed. The markup notes don't sit there forever.
Right.
They're deleted as part of the, all right, I've done this process.
Yep.
Hey, I fixed this. I check off a back check thing, and it goes back to the checker. And when he's satisfied that it is in fact fixed, he ticks off that, yes, this is checked, and he removes the note. It's no longer a problem. It's part of how the whole status display filter works. At least for, our system. Now we're testing out MDM and would like to see us get into that, but I don't think that even necessarily retains the error. I think it throws it out once you've satisfied that it's fixed.
Yeah, and that might actually be something that we have to address with them, because at least ideally we like to refine our processes and go back and say, okay, here are the things we goofed up on this job. How do we make sure that we don't do that again, so that we're not wasting any time?
Right.
And if some of those records aren't retained, then we can't do that. And that's actually something we've been doing a crappy job at lately, is fixing our processes, going back to our employees and saying, hey, what can we be doing better? Where did we lose time? Where did something that, some part of our system make it that you had to do something twice, or it took longer than it should have? And part of that is because, we've been doing it for a while now, and we've got our processes kind of refined. But a lot of it, too, is just that we're so busy that which is quality, I think it's quality assurance, right? Not quality management. I can never remember. But SDS, quality assurance, which is basically reviewing your processes, not the product. And that's something that we've kind of fallen back on lately, and it's one of the reasons that we're not like really chasing work right now, is that we want to get a little bit of a slowdown so that we can spend the time to go through and kind of fix those things, and spend the time training our employees and making them better, and making all of us better. Because it's funny too, we get, because we've got a stupid YouTube channel which we made with $50. People are like, oh, they really know what they're doing. No, we don't. Like, we're just figuring it out just like everybody else. But we're not shy about talking about it, and that's a big difference, especially with detailers. I mean, how many detailing conferences have we gone to, and we wanted to talk to somebody about how we handle our mistakes and when we screw it up, and we're talking to them, and they're like, oh, I guess I don't really ever make mistakes. It's like, okay. All right, I guess we'll just hire you then, and we'll retire. I it's a weird thing. Like I understand that you don't want to go to your customer and say, "Oh, we screw up all the time," but I do that. Like when I'm having conversations with our customers or with potential customers, I say, "Listen, sometimes mistakes happen. They do. We move fast. A set of detailed drawings for a moderate sized building has literally a million pieces of information in it, and if we're 99.9% accurate, there's still 1,000 mistakes in that project. Now, most of them are never going to come to fruition. They're, an angle is a quarter inch short or something like that, and it's not ever going to be a problem. But sometimes stuff goes wrong, and like we're human, and it's like every other person all the way down the line, from the mason to the project engineer, is allowed to make mistakes, but a detailer has to be 100% perfect 100% of the time. And the part that astounds me isn't when we make mistakes, it's how frequently we don't. Like how many times we go through projects and we never hear anything back. Like it just went up and we kind of forget about it. And
right. The quiet jobs are the easily forgotten ones.
Yeah. Right. And two, you can have customers where you do 1,000 great jobs with them, and then you do one and you make a mistake, big or small, and it's the end of the world. And for us it is too. Like my worst days are when I found out that I made a mistake, even a little one. Like we had that Subaru job where we trapped the bent plate around the corner. Like we wrapped it too much so that it couldn't be tilted in. And I mean, such a simple thing. Like they legitimately just had to cut off, 6 inches of bent plate to tilt that thing in. And reasonable mistake. Like you kind of had to think about it to really see even why it was a problem. Even after looking at it for a minute, I was like, well, what's wrong? I don't understand why this doesn't work. But still, you get that phone call. It's like, oh man, you feel like a failure as a human being. Like I'm not gonna be able to go home and please my wife tonight just because of this stupid freaking bent plate. Am I breathing into my microphone again? Sorry.
You're all right.
Just got this job. Can you give me a lead time and a price? Hurry up. Let's go. Classic. Maybe I'm too nice to our customers when like we don't bid a job and they're like, just start it. Just like I don't even have time to wait for you to bid it. Just give me the drawings. Maybe I should gouge them more on those. Like here's, I don't know. I've never really felt that need.
Well, that's why they keep coming back and just saying, just start this job.
All right, I got a real complaint that I want to talk about.
All right.
You people who are still using FTP sites, I want to murder you in your sleep. FTP is not a viable file storage option anymore. Stop it. That is not like there is no way that we've got one customer and they're a decent customer, right? But all of their bids, the first thing they do that's a strike for me is they ask me to bid every job that they bid. And I'm like, man, I don't have time to do that. I cannot bid your bids. If you want budget figures, if you want whatever else, like I'll try to give you as many as possible, but I can't do it. If you've got a good chance at a job, like if you're past the, you're doing D-scope or something like that, sure, I'll give you a price. But we work for dozens of fabricators. If I had enough estimators to put a bid on everything that you were bidding, I would have to be charging you for all that time. Like that's
right. We'd have to charge for the quote too.
Right. And then we get those friggin' the fabricators who you keep bidding them, and then you never hear back on the project. it's not even, oh, we ended up going another way, or, you know, you were 10% high. That's all fine. Let's get it. If I'm high every time, eventually I'm going to stop bidding you. But I will real quick stop bidding you if after 4 or 5 projects that I've bid for you, you just don't say anything to me.
Right. If it's nothing past thanks for the quote.
Right. I need some feedback from you. Are my numbers high? Is it my schedule? What's going on? Something.
Right. Now I can only conclude that you're using my price to beat down somebody else's price that you're going to actually use.
Right. Right. Or you're putting my quotes up against, you know, Joe offshore who has no costs or whatever else. Like, it's
right.
We try to be competitive with our bids, but we can only bid to get apples to apples. Right? You can't go to Nordstrom and expect Walmart prices. That's right. I just compared us to Nordstrom. Yeah. I feel like right now is when I should insert the generic YouTube advertisement. Like, this channel brought to you by Audible. It's always Audible. Like, Audible doesn't, like, every YouTube channel that I know is sponsored by Audible. Except for us, we get nothing.
I was gonna say, we're sponsored by us.
Yeah. Sponsored. This channel brought to you by United Structural as a community service. And to at some point so that you guys who watch the channel offer us all of your tips and tricks. And every once in a while somebody sends us a parametric or component. Those are my favorite. Like, that's one of my favorite forms of payment is somebody sends us a component or parametric that they're using.
You want to sponsor the channel, man. That's how you do it. Send us a good couple of functional components or parametrics. Right.
Or just some stupid tip. Like that freaking Todd Greening thing where he was like, oh, yeah, if you type @ you can put any angle in SDS2 and it restrains your line to that angle. It's like, are you kidding me? I can't remember the guy's name.
It's funny too when you get a tip like that from somebody. Like, to them, it's something that they've always known, and it's not news, but nobody else knows about it. They just don't know that nobody else knows about it.
Yeah, it's funny. We recently hired a guy, Jason, and he's been detailing 20 years, right? Like, he's fully functional in SDS2, or what passes as fully functional, and still, like, there's so much information out there. There's so many powerful ways to use this software, all of these softwares, that, in the couple months that he's been with us, that we've been able to teach him, like, here are all the things that you were missing out on. And part of that is that, like, it wasn't his role to actively be an SDS2 for the company that he was working for. Like, that's not something he was doing full time. But also, because we're not, project managers and all the other things that fabricators want their detailers to be, we just make steel details. That's what we do, and so we have to do it faster and better to make more money. So we keep applying those tips and those little tweaks. Plus, we're like, our laziness earns us so much more money. Like, I hate clicking 4 buttons when I can click 2. So I will write a script so that for the rest of my life, I only have to click 2 buttons. Even for silly things like to bring up our video chat, we all have on our freaking keyboards one button that's dedicated to, okay, just get into the video chat, as opposed to finding the app and then opening the thing and pressing the button that launches it. And it's like that little thing, like, just discovering that I could automate that process made me so happy.
Yeah. Well, like, just another example, I've got a macroed button on my keyboard where if I double click a label, this navigates me to the end of the label, so it hits end and then down or whatever it's got to do to get to the very end of the label, hits enter to get a new carriage return line, and then it types no paint within, whatever it is. It's got a couple different no paint notes that I've got where I just hit this button. So I double click the label, hit the button, hit escape, or hit tab enter, whatever it is, to move along.
Yep.
And it types out all this text for me, because Yeah, there's copy paste, but I've got multiple different labels that I would need to insert. So you can't just have them all ready to go with a copy paste. Plus, also trying to click, when you click in that label field, sometimes it highlights the whole label field instead of clicking exactly where you put the mouse. You know, it's not 100%, but you hit this button and it just puts it in there.
Well, and too,
No
like you get better quality and consistency that way, because like if you're hand typing those notes, like a special paint note or whatever else, the more you type it, the lazier you're gonna get. You're gonna start using stupid abbreviations or just leaving little bits off or whatever else, not justifying it properly.
Yep.
That's one of like my favorite parts about parametrics and components is the consistency that you get when you run a parametric to put in your bent plate. That bent plate looks the same and has the same reference points, and I can say, all right, Mr. detail scrubber, here's how I want you to scrub this. It's going to look like this every time. I want you to make it look like this every time. Whereas if you'd manually put that in, you might have started on the right end of the beam instead of the left end of the beam, or put that cope in using a clip or the cope command instead of typing in the cope into the material edit field or whatever else. And using those components and parametrics make that so much better. So, all right, I'm running out of steam and I'm ready for lunch. How about you?
Yeah, I'm ready for some lunch.
All right, gentlemen, it's been grand. We hope you enjoyed our time at the water cooler. I hope we can do this on the regular, and we'll see you soon.